The Case for the Defense, written by Graham Greene. Let's look at the author's short biography. Graham Greene was born in Berkhamsted, Hertfordshire, UK on October 2, 1904. The son of a school teacher, he went on to graduate from Balliol College, Oxford, with a degree in history. He began his professional career as a journalist, but he was not very successful at it. During his early days, he also wrote reviews for several English dailies in order to supply his income. He tasted false success as an author with The Man Within 1929, which emboldened him to take to writing books seriously. Greene went on to become one of the most versatile writers in the English language in the 20th century. His works can broadly be divided into two segments: thrillers and literary works. Among his successful thrillers were The Human Factor, The Comedians, Our Man in Havana, and The Quiet American. His famous literary works include Brighton Rock and the ever so powerfully written The Power and the Glory. A thinking man's writer, Greene was as much critically acclaimed as he was commercially successful. His last years were spent in Vevey on Lake Geneva, Switzerland, where he died in 1991. The Case for the Defense is premiering now. It was the strangest murder trial I ever attended. They named it the Beckham murder in the newspaper, though Northwood Street, where the old woman was found battered to death, was not strictly speaking in Beckham. This was not one of those cases of circumstantial evidence in which you feel the jury's anxiety because mistakes have been made, like tones of silence muting the court. No, this murderer was all but found with the body. When the Crown Counsel outlined his case, everybody believed that the man in the dock stood no chance at all. He was a heavy, stout man with bulging, bloodshot eyes. All his muscles seemed to be in his thigh. Yes, an ugly customer, one you wouldn't forget in a hurry. And that was an important point. The Crown proposed to call four witnesses who hadn't forgotten him. They had seen him hurrying away from the little red villa in Northwood Street. The clock had just struck 2 in the morning. Mrs. Salmon in 15 Northwood Street had been unable to sleep. She heard a door click shut and thought it was her own gate. So she went to the window and saw Adams, that was his name, on the steps of Mrs. Parker's house. He had just come out and he was wearing gloves. He had a hammer in his hand and she saw him drop it into the laurel bushes by the front gate. He had looked up at her window before she moved away. The fatal instinct that tells a man when he is watched expose him in the light of the street lamp to her gaze. His eyes were filled with a horrifying and brutal fear, like an animal's is. When you raise a whip, I talked afterwards to Mrs. Salmon. After the astonishing verdict, she went in fear herself, as I imagine did all the witnesses. Henry McDougall, who had been driving home from Benfleet, had nearly run Adams down at the corner of the Northwood Street. Adams was walking in the middle of the road, looking dashed. Old Mr. Wheeler, who lived next door to Mrs. Parker at number 12, was wakened by a noise like a chair falling through the inn as paper Wheeler wall. He had got up and looked out of the window just as Mrs. Salmon had done. He had seen Adams' back, and as he turned those bulging eyes in Laurel Avenue, he had been seen by yet another witness. His luck was badly out. He might as well have committed the crime in broad daylight. I understand. The counsel said that the defense proposes to plead mistaken identity. Adams White will tell you that he was with her at 2 in the morning on February 14. But after you have heard the witnesses for the Crown and carefully examined the features of the prisoner, I do not think you will be prepared to admit the possibility of a mistake. It was all over, you would have said, but the hanging, after the normal evidence had been given by the policeman who had found the body and the surgeon who examined it, Mrs. Salmon was called. She was an ideal witness with her slight Scotch accent and her expression of honesty, care, and kindness. The counsel for the Crown brought the stories gently out. She spoke very firmly. There was no malice in her and no sense of importance at standing there in the central criminal court with a judge in scarlet hanging on her words and the reporters writing them down. Yes, she said. She had been seen him, and then she had gone downstairs and rang up the police station.
And do you see the man here in court?
She looked straight across at the big man in the dock, who stared hard at her with his Pekingese eyes. They were without sign of any emotion.
Yes,
She said.
they are his.
You are quite certain?
She said simply.
I couldn't be mistaken, sir. It was as easy as that.
Thank you, Mrs. Selborne.
Counsel for the defense rose to cross-examine.
If you had reported as many murder trials as I have, you would have known beforehand what line he would take, and I was right up to a point. Now, Mrs. Selborne, you must remember that a man's life may depend on your evidence.
I do remember it, sir.
Is your eyesight good?
I have never had to wear spectacles, sir.
You are a woman of 55,
56, sir.
and the man you saw was on the other side of the road,
Yes, sir.
and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. You must have remarkable eyes, Mrs. Salmon.
No, sir. There was moonlight, and when the man looked up, he had the lamplight on his face.
And you have no doubt whatsoever that the man you saw is the prisoner.
I couldn't make out what he was at.
He couldn't have expected any other answer than the one he got.
None, whatever, sir. It is in a phrase one forgets.
Counsel took a look round the court for a moment. Then he said,
Do you mind, Mrs. Salmon, re-examining the people in court?
No,
Not the prisoner. Stand up, please. Mr. Adams.
There at the back of the court, with a thick, stout body and muscular legs and a pair of bulging eyes, was the exact image of the man in the dock. He was even dressed the same, tight blue suit and striped tie.
Now think very carefully, Mrs. Salmon. Can you still swear that the man you saw drop the hammer in Mrs. Parker's garden was the prisoner and not this man, who is his twin brother?
Of course, she couldn't. She looked from one to other and didn't say a word. There the big brute sat in the dock with his legs crossed, and there he stood, too, at the back of the court, and they both stared at Mrs. Salmon. She shook her head. That we saw was the end of the case. There wasn't a witness prepared to swear that it was the prisoner he had seen, and the brother. He had his alibi, too. He was with his wife. So the man was acquitted for lack of evidence, but whether, if he did the murder and not his brother, he was punished or not, I don't know. That extraordinary day had an extraordinary end. I followed Mrs. Salmon out of court. We got stuck in the crowd which was waiting, of course, for the twins. The police tried to drive the crowd away, but all they could do was keep the roadway clear for traffic. I learned later that they tried to get the twins to leave by a back way, but they wouldn't. One of them, no one knew which, said, "I have been acquitted, haven't I?" And they walked bang out of the front entrance. Then it happened. I don't know how. Though I was only 6 feet away, the crowd moved, and somehow one of the twins got pushed onto the road, right in front of a bus. He gave a squeal like a rabbit, and that was all. He was dead. His skull smashed just as Mrs. Parker's had been. Divine vengeance. I wish I knew. There was the other Adams getting on his feet beside the body and looking straight over at Mrs. Salmon. He was crying, but whether he was the murderer or the innocent man, nobody will ever be able to tell. But if you were Mrs. Salmon, could you sleep at night?